Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Everyone can hear me okay? My voice hasn't broken yet, which is a very good thing. There's banter already at the back, sledging. You can see things haven't changed from the end of last season. Fantastic, welcome back. Before we go any further, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jared Walsh, and it's very important that we acknowledge the Kaurna people, the traditional custodians whose ancestral lands that we gather on this evening here at the Joiners. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of the Kaurna people to country, and we respect and value their past, present, and ongoing connection to their land and their cultural beliefs. It's a very important night tonight, ladies and gentlemen, because obviously you, our loyal and trusted members, are here to celebrate Adelaide United heading into a new season in the Isuzu A-League men and A-League women. Hopefully I've got that right. It's a new season and we're very excited. Make some noise for Adelaide United. Come on. Can I just try something, because it's the first time we've done it this season, and you know what happens, just to see if everybody's up and about. We're going to make the most of it tonight, so you know what to say when I say Adelaide. It's very low key, so we'll do it 2 more times, right? Adelaide. It's not bad. Carl's only got a half smile, so we'll see if we can do it 1 more time. Adelaide. It's not bad, hey? We don't need the speakers anymore. If you need to use the bathroom, don't do it out here in the courtyard. You can go over there. They are that way. Please make sure you have checked in as well, ladies and gentlemen. We want to continue to keep South Australia COVID safe so we can get as many people to the football as possible. The great thing about this members forum, it is about you. Thank you, everybody who submitted questions over the past couple of weeks. And at the end tonight, you will have the chance to ask some questions too, because the purpose of doing these over the past few years, whether it's in person or doing it virtually, we want to get some insight into the people and the community that make up the club, which is everybody here. So we're grateful that you are here tonight and that you are still involved with the club as we continue to grow. We would like to thank our partners as well, of course, Flinders University, Kite Property, who were known as Starfish, and before that Ironfish. They are on the back of our shirt. So to Deke and the team, congratulations. They had a fantastic launch, which we've seen on our social media. UCAN, McDonald's, SA Power Networks, Australian Outdoor Living, and Adelaide Venue Management, and also, and a big thank you to our AV supplier tonight, NW Group, and the Joiners for hosting us, because this is a great venue where we see lots of you after the game with happy faces after a win, and happy faces after a loss because you're enjoying the beverages after leaving Cooper Stadium, and the happy faces when there are no arrests after members of the Red Army come here after a match, which is fantastic. You know who I'm talking about as well. I've seen you in the back of a cop car, mate. I'm only being serious. So tonight's going to be fantastic. It's a great insight into the club. We reflect on the past 12 months and probably, I could say the past 12 days, because it's been a huge couple of weeks for the Adelaide United Football Club on and off the field. We do have a door prize tonight, and that is our brand new 21-22 home shirt. It's a signed one, so make sure you stay until the end. We are going to draw out a name, which we'll basically got everyone's name who's here tonight, and then we'll be able to announce the winner. We are also very lucky to have our panel here tonight. So can you please put your hands together for CEO Nathan Kosmina, head coach of the A-League men's, Veart, and from the AVMC, General Manager Phil King's here. Now, unfortunately, the head coach of our A-League women, Adrian Stenter, couldn't be here tonight because he has commitments in regards to that program. But we are going to be going through a couple of discussion points tonight before we get to your questions, and that is club culture, that is football progression of the A-League men's and A-League women's leagues, membership ticketing, and Cooper Stadium upgrades. So just have a think about some of the questions you want to ask as well. And I can't stress enough, if somebody reflects an answer to a question you were thinking of asking, we just want to get through as many as possible tonight so your voices can be heard. First of all, before I go to you, Nathan, I want to speak on behalf of all of the supporters in the Adelaide United community, because obviously we're going to talk about what's happened over the past 7 days. And for someone like myself, who's been lucky enough to be involved with Adelaide United for a decade, I had hair when I started working with Adelaide United. It's not funny, guys. It's a real thing. However, my proudest moment to be associated with the club was last week when Josh was brave enough to tell the world who he was. And I think it's more about what happened through Josh, it's actually the environment that the club provided, which was an environment of safety, protection, and comfort to have a young kid feel comfortable enough to tell the world who he really is. And that is a risk. But he was comfortable enough to do that because the people who are here today, whether it is Carl and Ross and the coaching staff, whether it's Nathan, whether it's all the Adelaide United representatives, they have provided a culture for someone to feel safe and comfortable. And for me, that makes me proud to be part of the community. These guys aren't going to stand up here and say how good they are, but I think it's important we acknowledge the club and how brilliant they have been for a moment which saved lives last week. So I'm going to start with you, Nathan. The culture of the club. Culture is sometimes referred to things that happen in relation to cheese, because normally what happens is we say we've got a good culture and it's just a throwaway, but it's never actually shown and displayed. There's sporting organisations that say we've got a great culture, but it's even better when other people tell you that you do. How proud are you of what's happened over the past week?
Yeah, it's only now that we reflect on it 7 days or 8 days later that you kind of think about it in that sense. I mean, we've been speaking about culture 12 months ago, a little under. I think we had our last in-person forum at the Entertainment Centre, and we unveiled sort of our mission, vision and values, which we'd worked on through COVID, and we spoke about how important culture was, bringing Carl back, Ross back, Eugene back, revisiting the values under which the club was founded was kind of a big priority for us. We spoke a lot about it. Every player that signed for us, I think last season and this season, speaks about it with their first media engagement. But it is a little bit of that, Jared, in that it is a little bit of a... there won't be a club, in the country that doesn't speak about how good their culture is and how proud they are of their people. And there's probably an element of that to us, but I think last week was a tangible outcome to how good our culture is, and that's not necessarily... something that the office staff, own. I think primarily it's down to the coaching staff. It's that culture out at play for day to day, where Carl and Ross ultimately want to get the best out of everyone, and we want to come, and Carl says it quite often, and I don't want to speak on his behalf, but how he wants his players to be happy, and that's kind of a bit of a mandate for us as a club. We do that in the office, but I think at Playford it's a little bit of a point of difference in a football environment. It's very high pressure. There's pressure on coaches to win. There's pressure on players to perform. There's pressure on players to get new contracts, to earn every dollar they can. To step back a little bit from that and say, what's most important to us is that you're happy, I think is a little bit different to the way other clubs do things. And we never thought that it would result in the outcome of last week with Josh's announcement. But now reflecting on it, you kind of look back and go, wow, we hadn't really thought or maybe appreciated how good it was for him for the first people outside of his family to tell was Carl and Ross. I think that's pretty exceptional and probably speaks primarily to how good Ross and Carl are as people, but also about the culture that we've created. So we'll continue to focus on that as a priority for us. I mean, when Bruce used to talk about it a lot, and when we'd have discussion about players, we'd almost be 50% recruit based on character. It was really important for us to get people in that were good human beings that we thought could make our collective group better, rather than a good player that's good for themselves. So I think that is something we'll obviously continue to foster, because I think it's a bit of a competitive advantage for us. I mean, Carl and I have spoken about it. That might be the difference between us finishing 5th and 3rd, or 7th or 5th in a season, is that culture that we have within the club. So it's something we're all proud of. Last week was life-changing. I said when we addressed the players that it was the most memorable day in my professional career. And that's not being sort of selfish and reflecting on me, but that was more about seeing what it meant to Josh. It was an astounding process, and for everyone at the club that was involved, it's something I don't think we'll ever experience again, to work with an individual through such a momentous occasion. And we thought it was going to be big, It was, as I said to Josh today when he came in the office, it was about 8 p.m. that it got real big. So it was during the day the US market got around it, but then as soon as Europe woke up, it was just, you name them, it started coming. And then obviously the next morning it continued, and Marius and Jordan, who I think need to be acknowledged from our marketing and media team, probably dedicated 48 hours straight of their lives without sleep to helping Josh get through it. But there was 20 odd media calls the next morning for Josh, and he essentially spent the whole day doing media. And I think it was really well managed on behalf of the club, but all the credit should go to Josh, because it's incredibly courageous what he did. It's astounding that he's the first only active player in the world that's come out. I didn't actually realise that at the time, but the enormity of it is pretty significant, and I think it's something that will go down in history as a memorable day for the club, because it's something that I don't think we'll ever see again in our lifetime. It's the biggest moment in Australian football history, from a pure media standpoint when you start to look at it in that context, but also from in a broader Australian sporting landscape. I don't think any story's ever got that kind of reach before, so pretty amazing.
Can I ask about the pride you have in your coaching staff? Because the two things that equally impressed me on that day, I listened to an interview that Ross did on 5AA. And for me, when Ross came back to the club, the memories that I have of Ross when he was at Brisbane were quite aggressive. And to say the least. However, the Ross that I heard, I had to pull the car over and stop and go, what an impressive human being to provide such a role, as his title is obviously Carl's assistant, but he's a father figure to those players. And you can tell that those players connect with Ross. And the respect I had for him grew immensely because of that moment. But equally for Carl, I was lucky enough to see the video of Carl telling the players and also addressing the media afterwards. For me, it's how you handle these moments that really define your legacy. And to see Ross and Carl speak with passion, and they were speaking as fathers wearing Adelaide United polo shirts, and I loved it. How proud are you of that?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, and I think it speaks to the people that we've got involved. First and foremost, Carl and Ross are there to coach, but ultimately they're there to mentor and look after the lives of young men. And Josh sees, as I think, again, I'm speaking on his behalf, but sees both of them as somewhat father figures. He's here by himself from Melbourne, 21 years old. He came here when he was 20, really didn't know anyone, so the team has been his family in that instance. And as Ross said on Tuesday, when we were at an event and it was spoken about, he said he still gets emotional, a week later thinking about it. So again, I might maybe get Carl to speak on it from the coach's perspective, but I think again it just speaks to the character of the people that we've got here, and I think we're very fortunate to have people that will put with the well-being of their players first and foremost. Ultimately, we need to get results, but I think you'll see from Josh now that he will be a bigger and better player. Even today, he said, the word he keeps using is that he's free. He goes, at training, I just feel free. Like, it's an amazing feeling. So I think we'll see even more from him as a result.
Just got a couple of questions for you on that, Carl. Obviously, we're talking about pride of the coaching staff and the staff all around the club with Marius and Jordan, what they did, the digital team, to make sure that the announcement was done, obviously, really sensitively, the way that Josh wanted it. So for you, I guess, for you to provide that comfortable environment, you're the head coach of the side. How do you reflect on something like this?
It was you said I had to hold on to it for about 5 weeks. Josh spoke to me and Ross one morning, and we were both very happy because we could see that there was something not quite right with Josh. He had a lot of pressure on himself and he wasn't happy, and we just sat him down and we were having chats with him, and then he come a couple of days later and told us. And the relief and the change in Josh just after telling me and Ross, and the way that we responded to that, we've just seen him grow since then. And then since this last week at training, Josh is, like I always say, I want players to be happy. I want them to come to training, looking forward to come to training and enjoy training. And now you see that with Josh all the time. Because previously, he was a bit up and down when he came to training, depending on what mood he was in. So and that's something that we have to be mindful of when we are coaching players, and we've got a lot of young players out there, that we have to look after their well-being, because it is a stressful job playing football, and we have to make sure we are mindful of how we treat these players and to get the best out of them. And it was a very I was happy, very happy that day. When I woke up that day and I knew it was going to come, I was so happy and I couldn't wait for it to come. It was like Christmas morning.
It's a really special moment as well to see the players' reaction, which again, I spoke to Jacob Tratt about it. One of the moments straight after the announcement in the change rooms was amazing, because Josh said in the way that he presented to his teammates and to the media and the public, I just want to be treated like another person. I'm here to play football. I wanted to be treated like a footballer. And there's a moment, as soon as everybody gives him a high five and a hug in the change rooms, he goes and sits at his locker. And on the right-hand side, it was Jacob Tratt. On the left-hand side, it was Nick Ansell. And they just started talking about football again. So there was this one moment where it was so powerful. And then the players just normally, because of the environment that they're in, have gone, cool, let's just talk football again, mate. Well done, you've had your moment, and that's absolutely awesome. And let's give you what you want. So the players to be mature enough to understand the reality of the world that we live in, again, speaks volumes of the community of the playing group.
Yeah, most definitely. I think our playing group has to take a lot from this as well, because they've made it our environment out there, and it is. I've been in a lot of change rooms, and played at a few different clubs where the vibe in the change room wasn't, great. But it doesn't matter what morning you could come out to our training room. In the change room, there's always laughter. There's always players carrying on. They're always playing jokes. That's what you see now, is all of them have a smile on their face. And when you're in that type of environment, you can only achieve your best.
We'll come back to you in a second, because I've got some real hard-hitting questions, all right? So I've just shown everybody that you've got a heart, so you don't get angry if you want to ask the real serious ones. I wanted to officially welcome our chairman, Piet van der Poel's here tonight, and chairman of the advisory board, Ian Smith, is here. And also, pretty much, if Bruce Gitte was still here, he would still be talking from this time last year. So we would still be at the other venue, because he takes so long to answer a question. Bruce is doing other big CEO political things. We don't know what he does, let's be honest. But he has heaps of meetings and coffees. But we are very lucky, because we have a brand new head of football. Vito Basile is here, and he'll be joining us a little bit later on. So can you please put your hands together and welcome Vito to the club? So, Nathan, back to you. The fixtures have been announced. We are waiting on the finalisation of the A-League women fixtures, but for the Isuzu A-League men, it looks pretty good. How do you receive it as a club?
Yeah, well, we're normally ultra critical. So normally when a fixture comes out, we'll spend a few weeks complaining about it. It gets changed, and they change a few things. It makes other games worse. This is, and I told this to APL, probably the best fixture we've had in my time at the club. 8 Saturday nights at 7:15, so no 6:30 kickoffs on a Friday night, and then three Friday nights 7:15, and a couple of midweekers over summer. And I think that has shown the shift in the league. So obviously before, very broadcast directed fixture, which hurt us, being at a different time zone. Now with Paramount and 10, they're going to simulcast these Saturday night games, which means 4 clubs get to play in that prime time Saturday night slot every week, which is really good. They've also been really flexible in terms of timing. So we tweaked a few timings, and they said this might be a bit better. They're like, that's fine, because they know that full stadiums ultimately are good for the TV product. So I think that's a shift that we acknowledged, like I sent an email saying thank you, but I think hopefully the fans start to see that it's more fan focused now. They really want full stadium. So I think the draws... Yeah, so the games will be simulcast, so we don't have the split of what's on 10 free-to-air and what's on Paramount. So I'd encourage everyone to sign up to Paramount if you haven't already. I'm assuming everyone here is a current member. Therefore, you should be getting a $75 12-month subscription. But we don't know the split, but they'll obviously be on the same time. And if you've got the Paramount out, you'll be able to go back between the two of them. So we'll get that in the coming weeks, I'd suggest. We've got a few of our Saturdays that are really big games, so I'm assuming that they will be the prime time match. But it's a really good draw. We think the double headers are going to be really good. So we've got one in at the moment. We got the women's draft draw today. That'll be a few more days to go through. We've got a double header on the 23rd, which we're sort of setting up as a bit of a Christmas event, which will be good. And the other one that's a little bit different, but I think it can work, is the New Year's Day game. So it's we've traditionally done Boxing Day. They didn't want to do that this year. I just think the fixture fell right. They put us before Christmas, so we thought could work. Really good for the kids. And then the New Year's Day game, we actually didn't mind. We think we in 2006, I think it would have been 05-06, first year of the A-League, we actually played New Year's Day for those that were there. So it's a bit of a back to the future moment once again, where we'll try something from the old days, but I think that could be good too.
So I wanted to ask about the TV deal because, in my opinion, I'm not speaking on behalf of the club here, but I think in the last year, the last 12 months on the previous provider, I think sometimes the A-League men's and women's was a bit of an afterthought. But what I'm loving now seeing on 10 and Paramount is that there's A-League stories everywhere, which is so exciting. And it's both for A-League men and A-League women. And they're coming from a genuine place, from a broadcaster that wants to be involved. We have fresh faces in the commentary teams alongside, obviously, Simon Hill, that has been the voice of football, is always going to be synonymous of calling our grand final win. So he's always going to have a special place in my heart. But still for us as a club, free-to-air, getting eyes on the sport and eyes on our club, I'm sure this is a perfect time to actually to reach a different audience over summer.
Yeah, it's game changing. I mean, it's been spoken a lot about the broadcast deal, and Fox, particularly through COVID, a new deal was struck. It was financially worse for clubs in the league, and I think the product itself, they sort of commentating remotely, all that kind of stuff, less cameras at games, it just wasn't what it used to be. 10 and Paramount really throwing the kitchen sink at making this their product. You notice that, I mean, you're just seeing the trams that are going past, and we were talking about it on Tuesday, post the Melbourne Cup. I think got a bit of traction on social media, the fact that there was an A-League ad immediately after the Melbourne Cup. Things like that. So we're with a partner that is heavily invested in making the product better, but they're also with us in terms of the clubs, in terms of making our clubs better. So they're not just all about purely eyeballs on TV. Obviously, that's the metric that will define their success, but they realise to get that, you need to get people buying into club football and going down, in our instance, to Cooper Stadium. So the other aspect of it was with Fox, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they had a camera, maybe half a journo here in the last few years that we would work with occasionally, but half the time we're probably shooting stuff for them. Now we've got a whole network on Hutt Street that we're working with to develop content and promote the games and get more people there. They're free to air. When it was on 10 last time, it was purely a feed. So they just took the Fox feed and put it on 10. Now it's an actual Channel 10 product and Paramount product. So I think obviously we've seen a few FA Cup games. That's a different production schedule, so that's going to look different to what the A-League will look like. That's part of the FA deal. But from round one onwards, I think everyone will see a different product, and I think it'll be a lot better.
Just finally, before we go to Carl, you were talking about the A-League women with the potential of double headers. We've got the one, and it'd be great to do that because we can see it's a really important time for women's sport and women's football with the World Cup not too far away, but also the growth of our A-League women's side. We were so close to finals last year. We had a huge crowd at Cooper Stadium. So obviously that relationship with women's football continues to grow strong.
Yeah, and that was obviously the start of that was last year's game, or this year's game on the 21st of March, where we set the A-League regular season record. And sort of now it's all about, okay, well, that was a one-off event. How do we leverage that to make that more regular and get all those people coming back? And we've always said Martin's a great little boutique venue. I love going down to Martin on a Saturday night for a game, but the home of Adelaide United is Cooper Stadium, and we need to get the women's team back there. So we'll do at least 2 double headers this year. We're looking at the back end now around what that looks like. And then we probably won't do the standalone game this year. We'll hold off until the stadium's fully finished, but we really want to get people back, being the people that came to the 21 March game, but obviously the broader community, because we're all working towards 2023. So that's something you'll see with the Channel 10 APL promotion of the league. They're going really hard at promoting the what is now A-League women. So I think if we can get that 23 March, that's why we picked that date. We didn't want to go too early. We thought the Christmas sort of launch around the double headers would be really good and get as many people to Coopers as possible.
Thank you. Carl, let's talk a bit of football. Obviously, on the weekend, wasn't the result that we wanted. And I guess what friendlies are all about is to get rid of a few teething issues, new faces at the club, players returning from injury. What do you take away from that result against Brisbane?
As you said, it wasn't a result that we wanted. I think the first 15, 20 minutes we gave away a couple of really soft goals, and after that we were quite good in the game. Overall, we were the more dominant side in the game, but we just, as you said, the benefit of that was we come away with two things that we needed to work on, and we've started working on that already, leading into round one. And you needed those games against the same quality opposition to really see what level you're at.
Let's talk about the squad, because we said farewell to a fair few senior players. Moroney, Elsie, Tommy, just to name a few, with some of the younger boys as well, and one of them I am going to get to. But we bring in Nick Ansell, Isaias, George Blackwood comes back, Jacob Tratt, Bernardo, Popovic, Nestri, Aaron Kunda, and Ethan Alagic, where there's some familiar names there. But there's a big mix. So can you talk about some of these players and what they're going to bring to the squad?
Yeah, look, I'm sure I don't have to say anything about Issa. The opportunity when that came up, Bruce has been talking to Issa since I've came back to the club, and that came up late, and it was an opportunity that I believe that we couldn't let go. And Issa will be a huge influence on our side this year when he's playing, because that's his greatest strength, his managing of the game during the game, but also the way he is around the change room, especially with the younger group that we've got, that we have some good leadership players there, and the three Spanish boys that we have at the club are tremendous. The amount of work that they put in with our young players is tremendous. So Issa is going to be a huge plus for us this year, and bringing George back as well, it's a player that I knew, and I know what I'm going to get from George. And again, he fits the culture that we are looking to have at the club. And, he's still a young player, George. He's only 23. So he's still a very young player. And we believe we can, he can fit into our side as well. So, and then we needed to strengthen our side defensively. We conceded far too many goals last year, soft goals. And so we've brought two very physical central defenders. They like to kick attackers. They're a little bit old school.
What's their best quality? They kick attackers. Good.
Yeah. So, but they both can play as well. They're both good players, but they bring that toughness that we didn't have last year.
Let me ask about Isaias, because I need to be the representative of the people who are going to ask these questions, okay? So we have a mentality of that we are bringing young players into the club, and we want to promote young South Australians and develop them. And then we bring in a bloke who's in the back end of his career for 3 years, which for me, I can understand people probably asking the question. However, to shed a bit of light, I spoke to Issa on the award-winning Pitch podcast a couple of weeks ago. It hasn't won any awards yet, guys. It's got 3 listeners, so if you can please listen to that, that'd be great. Issa had interest from other A-League clubs. So for me, it's as simple as this. I can't bear to see Isaias wearing another A-League men's shirt. That for me is as simple as that, because this has happened before in our history. So does that play a big role in signing him, but also alongside what he can do for the likes of Louis Dorigo, for young players to actually bring the experience? And he was one of our best players on the weekend, so he can still bloody play.
Of course, he can still play. As I've always said, I think he's the best player that has ever played for the club. Issa, Craig has still got a lot of work to do to catch up with Issa, I think. And look, Issa's been, the first 2 FA Cup games, he was quite rusty, and he'll be the first one to admit that he wasn't at the level that we want from him. But on the weekend, we saw that he's almost back to the level that he was at before he went away. So we've still got we've got a game tomorrow night, then another game next week, an internal game. So going into round one, I'm sure Issa will be back to what he was at before he left the club. And saying, how old he is, Issa's in our top 3 in our physical testing at the club. So, he's got plenty of years left in him.
One of the things I love about players that leave the club and they come back. So speaking of Issa and George Blackwood, the same's happened with players like Riley and, of course, Goody. It's sometimes the mentality of you don't know what you've got till it's gone. And players like George might come back with a really good chip on his shoulder to go, I'm here to prove a point to the world. And I love that. Issa is coming back to go, I know what it's like to live in South Australia, because he's come from Qatar in a COVID environment where life was pretty tough. So to understand how fortunate they are to play in Adelaide for Adelaide United, I think it's going to bring the best out in them.
Yeah, most definitely. And they, as you said, they love the city, they love the people, they love our supporters. And I know even the 2 new players that we've just brought to the club, in Nick and Traddy, they're both looking to buy houses here now, because in just in the short period that they've been here, they've fallen in love with Adelaide as well. So hopefully that can reflect in their performances on the pitch.
This time last year, I said one particular name and I got hissed, and that was James Troisi. And so I didn't set that up. So I do need to ask, because we're all friends and I'm socially distancing from you, so I'm not scared, kind of. Al Hassan Toure, what happened there? Because Al Hassan was such a shining light in the FFA Cup. Mo comes along too, and we're like, this is awesome. The Toure boys are going to be with us for a very long time. And then, see you later, Al Hassan. Can you talk us through that without breaking any confidentiality?
Yeah, look, no, I'll be very honest, like I was with Al Hassan. I think it's, last season we weren't happy with his performances, and he struggled, and he put his hand up, and he will admit that he struggled last year. And at the end of last season and leading into pre-season, I sat him down and asked him, what we needed to do to get more out of him and to get him back to the level that he was at when he first burst on the scene. And in our discussions, he wanted to play more as a winger. He didn't believe that he was at number 9, and that's where I thought he was best suited. And I said to him, well, if you want to play on the wing, you've got to fight with Ben Haller and Craig Goodwin. And we've got a couple of younger players that are coming through that I don't want to limit their opportunities. So I said to him, I don't think you're going to get much game time here. And I said, that's not going to be any good for you. For you, you need to keep playing if you want to get to the level that you want to get to. And so it might be best for you to look somewhere else to find that game time that you're going to need, because I won't be able to give you that game time playing on the wing.
I want to ask you about some young kids. Bernardo is unreal, and he's going to be very good, and he's already really good. I'm sure that excites you, but also we have Nestori and we have Ethan. And the thing I love about that is that obviously we have 2 past greats of the club, which will make you feel old once again because if you're playing good with them. But obviously Bernardo is a really good story because Cassio was so disconnected from the club for such a long time. And then last year we celebrate another player returning to be part of Adelaide United, and he's decent. And Ethan's decent. Tell us about these kids that are going to be the future of the club.
Yeah, look, Bernardo, I've known Bernardo for quite some time, and I suppose he left and went to Melbourne City, and when he was there, I spoke to Cassio a fair bit about, and especially when I got the job, about getting him back here, and they jumped at that opportunity, and I think Bernardo is he is a very different player. I know we say he's an Australian player, but he doesn't play football like an Australian. He is very different. He's a very exciting player to watch, but he's only 17, so he's still got a long way to go. And it's important for him that he needs game time this year. He needs to be out playing games, and he's done exceptionally well in the first 2 FA Cup games, and it's going to take more games for him to learn, because he still needs to learn, but he's a very exciting player, and he's a player that you will pay money to come and watch.
What about the other 2?
Young Nestor, well, he's only 15. So again, Nestor as a winger, is most probably. We haven't actually tested him yet. We'll be doing that testing maybe on that next week. I reckon he might be faster than Mohammed. So he's a very quick player.
Did you have to when you signed him and he's 15? Because when you said that in my head, I'm like, yeah. So I'm 22 years older than him, and it makes me feel really old. Is everyone else trying to count that out of their head going, holy shit? Now you're doing it.
Yeah, again, Nesta, I will most probably, I think he will see game time this year in the A-League. Again, he's a very exciting player and has that speed, but technically is very good as well. And I think if you've come out and watched any of our NPL games this year in the local league, you would have seen these young boys running around and seen that there's a huge talent there for them. And as a coach, I think it's important that we show that there's a path there for young players that they can play in the A-League side, so they don't lose that hope and they keep pushing. Because if you look around a lot of the other A-League clubs, they don't provide that opportunity for their young players, and then they get they lose their way a little bit, and you see a young kid that you think, oh, this young kid at 17 years of age is going to be an exceptional player, and then 3 years later you don't see him because they haven't had opportunities. And that's something that, as a coach, I want to be able to provide those opportunities for the young players.
And that's one of the things I heard Johnny, who's sitting over there, does a podcast and works with Hills Radio, and he was talking to Louis Dorigo. And one of the things that Louis said was like how proud he was to be a young kid that gets an opportunity. And it's not a token opportunity, it's one that's earned, but the opportunity is there at Adelaide United. I wanted to ask about the goals for the season. Last year was such a unique year with COVID. We were lucky enough to have games at home, but obviously it didn't end the way that we wanted. How do you measure success this season?
Yeah, look, I think when we reflect back on last season, I would say it was a successful campaign overall, and I would expect us to have a very similar season to what we had last year, and hopefully we can get to those finals again and get to the big one at the end. But that's going to depend on how we go over the course of the season. But that's our goal as a playing group. That's why we've brought back some of the players that we have, because that's what we want to do, is get to the grand final and win. But it's going to be a very exciting year this year. I think when you look at a lot of the players that the other A-League clubs have brought in and the money that they've spent to bring players back to the country and big names as well, it's going to be a very exciting year, and it's going to be a difficult year, and we're going to have to play at our best for most of the games if we want to get there.
And I know you're a humble man, but Carl last season came over here before the game just to spend time with the supporters, not because he was told to, but because he wanted to. So he loves immersing himself in the Adelaide United community. Please give him a huge round of applause. Hey, Phil. So any time that I want to walk around Cooper Stadium, I have to dress up like a member of the village people and put a hard hat on and some high vis. What's going on with the stadium? Can you please give us an update? Because it's getting there, but it's also exciting at the same time. It's a kind of demolition site.
Yeah, it's so it's broken down into 3 stages, the upgrades to the stadium, and we're coming to the back end of stage 1 at the moment. We'll have that, I think, handed over probably some stage next week. We should take that back from the builders. So, mate, what you'll see and what you'll notice. So, first of all, I think the most important thing that's been done over there this season is the upgrade from 2 change rooms that we had to 4. And why I think that's so important is to the point before the boys were talking about with Josh. Well, I think now what should be celebrated is that they've created parity for women as well. I think the fact that we can have A-League W games side by side with the A-League men's is really important. And I think as we lead into what's a very important year in 2023 with the Women's World Cup coming to Australia, it speaks volumes for, and, I know I talk to Nathan 3-4 times a week, maybe sometimes 3-4 times a day, but, I know he's really strong on, from a cultural perspective, to create parity for the women and the women's game. So that's probably the most important thing that's actually happened over there. There's a lot of stuff that I don't know if people actually really notice this year, what we've done. I can tell you it's a bloody lot of work. It has been a lot of work. And if you walked around there at certain times, it really is a construction site. All the retail spaces, so all the bars and the outlets, completely gutted and all brand new through there. So why that's really important, and the things I hope that you see is a better quality of product. So that should just by natural attrition be lifted, and the speed of service should also improve as well as a result, because we've got the ability to do that now. Little things, stuff which, again, it may not seem like that's important, but moving the broadcast from where it was as you come through on Holden Street, that's now being shifted over to next to the family park. There's a lot of those little things, and what it's really been focused on now in stage one is the stuff we don't need council approval for. So it's sort of taking like for like things we can go through. Corporately, we've gutted a lot of areas, we've rebuilt that. Not important to some people, but for us, it's really important to make sure that we adhere to all the things that FIFA want us to, and also provide opportunities for the club, because at the end of the day, they've still got to be commercially viable. So we keep improving those things and hopefully returning a better quality of product for them. Stage 2 is what you're really going to notice, and you'll actually notice it this year, because the timeframes that we've got to deliver the stadium for 2023, we've just got to kick on with the work now. So unfortunately, what that means is the eastern stand is completely out this year. No one will get in there. It's a construction zone. You'll notice that we've chopped out a whole section up the top. There'll be a whole new function space going built there. The roof will go in. All the pylons and the footings on the east are starting to all be dug and set. There'll be some changes as people arrive this year, because we lose gate 10. So Manton Street, which is actually our biggest area that we can load people through, we've lost that. We've had to disperse that, and we'll start communicating that in the next week or two, so people get a better understanding of where to come through and where to access. But what it will mean is, again, we've started working with DIT, who own Manton Street. So they're the government department that are responsible for Manton Street, and the local council as well, and shutting down the road in its entirety 2 hours before the game. So we can actually move all of you pretty safely down the road itself, because the footpath's completely out now as you come down Manton Street. That's gone because, again, we need that space to be able to lift and use it like a bit of a boneyard. So there's a lot of those little things that, yes, you'll notice a lot of stuff, and there are some changes, but I can tell you the back end, the benefit of what you'll see as we come through the other side of it, we will deliver, I believe, the best viewing experience in the league. And, I spoke to the boys on Tuesday about this. 16,000 people in that stadium when it's full, and especially with all those upgrades, honestly, it'll feel like 40,000 people. It's going to be an amazing space to play in. As we put the screens up, new lighting towers will go up. We'll put all new AV. So Nathan said to me, "It's important we hear Jared." I said, "What? Why? Why do we need to spend that money to hear Jared?"
Just getting my voice break.
But he's been pushing really hard for that. But again, just the audio experience will be a lot better. We're going to flip the gates. So as you come through Holden Street, now through gate 4, that will be completely demolished. The plan is, after the Women's World Cup, that I hope Nathan doesn't mind me saying this, Adelaide United will actually take up residence in the stadium itself, which again is great for the club. We'll build a function area down there on Holden Street for them, and that is where the current entry gates are, and we're actually going to move the entry gates over to gate 5. So from a flow perspective, that's going to be a lot better. So patrons will just flow straight through the stadium a lot better. The hand scanners that we're actually using now that at times are a little bit frustrating, a bit glitchy, they'll be gone, and we're going to start putting in all new fixed turnstiles. Again, it's just going to make it a lot quicker for people to come through, and just a much better experience. You'll see a lift going through where the broadcast used to be, so that's currently being constructed. And then little things that we needed to do for FIFA. And again, stuff which you may not appreciate as members, but it's really important to be able to deliver a world-class experience. So things like an event operations centre, again, for FIFA, that's really important. We've got to upgrade those things. As I said, it may not feel important to some people, but it's really important to make sure that the experience for everyone, not just for one isolated group, but for everyone, is an improved experience.
And I think, on behalf of all the supporters and members here tonight, it's a tough job that you've got, obviously, because it's a watch this space. But from what you're just saying then, I'm sure you can all agree it's exciting to go that what is certainly on the way. And there's no one better to lead the team than Phil. Can you please give me a huge round of applause? Now, we've given you a round of applause because I'm leading up to a question that I have to ask. So when it comes to the venue moving into the season, vaccine mandates, is this the discussion you have had yet, or you're going through at the moment?
I think we're all talking about it in terms of be it league, be it venues, be it government agencies. That's a discussion that's seemed to be had by all of us. Look, at the moment, there are some vaccine mandates in terms of who of my staff can deal with Nathan and Carl's staff on a game day. There's a little bit of that in place, again, to protect the integrity of the playing group and the workforce. And that's great. And we actually really embrace and enjoy the fact that we've got some rules and a bit of rigour around that. We're really good with that. I believe that at some point along the line that there'll probably be a mandate potentially for vaccines. I don't know that for a fact. That's just me guessing. I'll be honest. I've got no insight into that. I am off to SA Health next Tuesday. I've got a meeting with them. The best thing I think that happened for us was the Premier coming out and actually outlaying his roadmap for what that actually meant for the state. I think that we've managed COVID really well in this state. I think we've done a really good job of it. I'm not going to lie, last season was really frustrating for us at times. It was hard to work within the confines of the restrictions. And, you know, we're going into SA Health very much with the mindset that we played ball and we did the things last year that were asked of us, and we believe that we did it not only to the best of our abilities, but they actually hold us up as a bit of a pinnacle of how well that we've done that. But we feel now that the time for that is to retract some of that is here, and we want to see where we get back to be able to effectively offer patrons the opportunity to come to games and have seating that isn't allocated and not have to put masks on. So again, look, some of that is I wish it was my gift to give and be able to just say, hey, we're going to do that. And I think that the approach that we'll be taking with health is probably a bit more of a stronger tactic to going in there and saying that we believe that otherwise why are people getting vaccinated? Why are we doing these things? So we have to move to there, and we have to move there quickly for the benefit of really first and foremost our partner being the club. And, you know, obviously we want to deliver a much better experience for all of you, which if we're being honest, it probably wasn't the pinnacle of experiences last year, but we really are working hard to make sure that that's much improved this year.
And we know that the arts, entertainment, hospitality are probably three of the most affected industries when it comes to COVID. So again, your team has been absolutely outstanding. So thank you very much. We're going to get you now to hand the baton or the microphone over to Vito. So please give Phil a huge round of applause. And we welcome Vito Basile up here to the club. So I've got some fun facts about Vito as we get to know him. The FA Women's National Performance Manager, where he attended 2 World Cups and the 2016 Summer Olympics. The Men's National Team's Manager, Assistant Team Manager, and attended 2 World Cups and the 2017 Confederations Cup, which is an achievement in itself. So let's get to know you, Vito. Tell us about your time in the national program.
My time with the national teams spanned over 10 years across the Socceroos and the Matildas, and being able to work with the 2 pinnacle football teams in this country at the world's biggest football events it was a privilege and an honour. And I recall distinctively that every match that we played, where we stand arm in arm and singing the national anthem, whether it was in front of 50,000 people or 20,000 people, they were money can't buy life experiences. As a kid growing up watching Carl and Ross, you know, everyone has the dream to play for the Socceroos and Matildas. I didn't. I couldn't play. Not good enough. But the next best thing was to be the team manager.
To get the opportunity to work with Adelaide United, can you talk about, I guess, the process that led you to this moment, but also your impressions of the club? Because I've said this openly, I feel that the club's in the most healthy place it's been for so many years, and that's especially in the front office. So for you to have this opportunity, can you talk us through that?
Yeah, for me, it was a change in lifestyle, having 2 young children, travelling the globe constantly. It was difficult to be that father. And having 2 young girls that at times can sort of veer off the right track, it was it was the right time to step away from the national teams. And I've known Nathan for a number of years now with our time together at Football SA and at Croydon back in the day, that from afar, I always supported Adelaide United, and it was always a team or a club organisation that I wanted to work with. And I think constantly I was in touch with Nathan saying, mate, get me a job. And luckily enough, it fell the way it did, that one door closed and another one opened. And coming to the club, we spoke about culture heavily tonight, but as a new person coming into Adelaide United, by far and beyond, the culture is one of the best I've seen globally, working with so many sporting teams, working under different coaches. And that's a testament to Nathan leading the office staff, and also to Carl leading the football staff out at Playford, that it is safe, it is inclusive, it is welcoming, and it does feel like a family environment where you can have a laugh, but you could also be serious and focus on business.
Let's talk about business. So the areas of improvement for the club, where do you see are our key growth areas?
Yeah, from a football department perspective, and I've been having these conversations with Nathan since I commenced, for me, in my mind, there's 5 key strategic pillars. One of them is performance and winning. So continuing with the success of the club over the years, winning tournaments, winning cups, and breeding that through to our women's team. Hopefully this year's the key year for them to break that drought in making the finals. Secondly, facilities. So facilities is a big one. Having the opportunity to travel the world and seeing what is out there. Australia just broadly, it lacks. And to be a benchmark team in this country, that we need to look how we can enhance the facilities we have, but also grow the sub-sites, which leads into the next point, or the pillar is youth development. So how do we establish a clearer youth development program across our youth men's, but also our women's? The key for me in the women's space is we conducted a performance gap at FFA last year, and we identified that players aren't playing enough match minutes. So for us here in SA, can we look to implement a program that sits above the NTC, but below the A-League W, and have those girls in a 12-month, all year round professional training environment? So that step from the local football to the domestic football is a lot easier. Also focus on people and culture. So as we've been addressing today, the culture is a big one. It's about recruiting the right people, and I think we've got a good mixture of that, but it's also retaining the right people and how we go about empowering those individuals to be the best they can be as humans, but also as footballers or administrators, as a CEO. And then lastly, the final one for me, have I said 5 already? I've lost count. I think I've spoken too much.
You certainly haven't. I want to ask you one more question before we go into the member questions. As we are approaching January, the year's going very quickly, and we've got the opportunity to sign some players. Can you please dispel or prove some theories and rumours correct? Were Berisha and Castro in the conversation of signing for Adelaide United? Because the names were thrown around. I think it would be weird having Berisha playing for us, right? Because we love to hate him. We know what it was like when Marcos Flores went to Victory. So Berisha, and even though like Castro, he still can play, were they ever in the conversation?
This is where I delegate and handball to the CEO.
Well, I might hand pass again.
If this comes back to me, I'm going to say, yeah, they were.
I'll say one wasn't, one maybe.
Oh, Carl, you can't do that. Okay, fair enough.
As far as I know, Rambo's still playing in Asia somewhere. Yeah.
He's loving life over there, getting heaps of cash and not coming back to Australia. He's absolutely loving it. Can you please give Vito a huge round of applause? Welcome, mate. Thank you very much. Okay, so there's a cut. No, you got to stay. Vito, you got to stay up here, mate. You got to answer the tough questions. All right. If one goes to Phil, you can just handball it back to him. So there's a lot of members who couldn't be here tonight, so they've sent through their questions. So we'll go through them. This is from Ian from Ashford. The question is, is Ian here? G'day, Ian. I mean, you could have saved this until when we throw it out there, but that's totally fine. There's plenty of grassroots coaches in the women's game. Has the club thought of offering the chance for these coaches to attend training to learn from Adrian as a way of connecting further with grassroots?
Yes, and it's a good question because it's been somewhat of a priority. It's been put on the back burner a little bit with COVID. So we've had extremely strict regulations around what we can and can't do. Obviously on match day with the men and women, it's at a distance and selfies and all that haven't been allowed. The same's applied at training, and I think it probably will to a degree this year. But Ivan, in his time as head coach and also as women's football director, was really passionate about creating pathways for female coaches. We sort of said the benchmark for us is to have a female women's coach. I don't think it's something that we'll necessarily achieve in the short term, but then how do we create a pathway for these coaches to progress from what is amateur in terms of the NPL to a fully professional environment. So pre-COVID, Ivan ran some sessions with C licensed coaches with Football SA's women's only C license. We've had a few mentor coaches out along the way. Marie Spagnoletti came out for a season. Stella Rigon as a past player was out last year, will come back out this year. So it's definitely a priority for us. To do it more broadly is a little bit difficult at the moment, but I think in the next sort of 6 to 12 months, we'll probably be able to change that.
Awesome. In your conversations with Phil, this is from Derek from Hove. With the upgrade to Cooper Stadium, why weren't fans not asked for their desired input in the design? A roof over the northern end and small increase in seating would have been desirable.
Yeah, so the roof was a priority for us as well on the north and south, to the point that the drawings and plans are there. They're just not part of these works. So the primary reason for that was probably twofold: available funds from the state government through COVID, but they couldn't get the north and south roof on in time for the Women's World Cup. So there was one or the other in terms of there's two stages. They can do the east now, but the north and south were going to be too big of an issue. So that is something we'll lobby heavily for, because that's sort of the finishing piece to the puzzle in terms of the stadium. So the priority was also to satisfy FIFA, who are quite strict with what they want. So I think what we've got is a really good venue, and it's basically there ready to go to finish it off when we can get the north and south roof.
Vito, I'm going to continue Derek's question. Derek was wondering if the board and yourself are considering additional resources to get some players in January.
Yeah, certainly working close with Carl and Nathan. We are looking to potentially sign players in the January window. Under no circumstances will be pressured to do so. If the right player comes along and it's a key position that the team needs, we'll go into those negotiations. But in the role now, since I commenced, it's every day seeing footage of players being sent across us from various agents or just kids off the street wanting to have a crack. So I won't promise yes, but we are always looking.
One of the challenges, sorry, just to jump in this year, was that the registration window actually shut on the 18th of October. So clubs aren't able to register players now. And with that, we had significant issues getting SAS in. It probably took 5 weeks just to get a flight, I think. So I think, to Vito's point, it'll be a priority for us. We're looking at it now as well to see what we need to do to bolster the squad. The January window opens on the 10th or 14th. So we're only 6 or 7 weeks into the season where we'll potentially have the opportunity to bolster the squad.
Carl, this is from Eugene from Henley Beach. He wanted to know whether Eugene Galakovic has a tough decision week in, week out, choosing between James Delianov and Joe Gauci. Obviously, last season was, it sounds horrible saying a blessing in disguise, the injury, but obviously we have two fantastic goalkeepers that are going to be vying for a spot where one of them is going to be playing, the other one needs to be kept happy because he deserves to be playing too. How's Eugene going with that?
Yeah, look, it's as you said, we're very fortunate that we got two young, exceptional goalkeepers. And the start of last season, James was the number one, and then he got injured, and then Joe came in, and he then became the number one, and then Joe got injured, and then so James finished the season as number one. And unfortunate, Joe has only just returned to full training this week. So going into the season, James will start as our number one, and Joe will have to wait his time. But what we've seen so far in training, Joe is pushing extremely hard, and yeah, huge. Will have a very lot of sleepless nights making those decisions.
Can I ask a question following on from that in regards to injury? Stefan, towards the back end of last season, it seemed to be at a point where he was like, just push through it or just get the surgery and deal with it. It got to a point where he got the surgery done. So how's he going in his recovery? Because we've seen Goody making his return slowly but surely, which is fantastic. And Stefan, what's he's going like?
Yeah, as you said, Steph last season played, I think, 90% of the season with a broken leg. We waited. We gave it 6 weeks after the season to try and heal, and it didn't heal. So then he had to have an operation, which was a nasty operation, where they hammered a rod through his bone from the bottom of his foot all the way up.
Glad I asked.
Yeah. So he's slowly coming back. He will play in our trial game tomorrow night and should be available to play round 1.
I think there's a trial game tomorrow night that we're not talking about. Nathan, let's quickly move on. This is one final question before we throw it out to the crowd. Robbie from Monopara wanted to know about the club financially post-COVID. Obviously, everyone was affected. We were lucky enough to have games at home, but we'd be lying if we said that the club wasn't affected in some way or another. So how's the club tracking?
Yeah, good. It's probably the strongest position we've been in recent years, I would suggest. The biggest challenge through COVID was the uncertainty of the future. I think we, at time for a period there, didn't think we had any broadcast deal. We had no prospect of borders opening. We had the potential for empty stadiums. We had the potential for hubs with no revenues. What we've had at the back end of this year is obviously some optimism around COVID and getting people back into Coopers, and I think that's helped us. Our membership's bounced back. We're not at where we were pre-COVID, but we're up on last year, which is good, and we hope that continues to grow in the next few weeks. I think what you should get this year is some certainty on the fixture. I'd be very surprised if it needs to change, and as I said earlier, I think it's one of the better ones we've had in recent memory. The other thing that's really helped is the broadcast deal, which is 5 years of revenues, and a 5-year CBA, which mandates player wages or minimum sort of retainers for players for the next 5 years. So that's allowed us to plan beyond a week or a month. I mean, that was basically what it was in COVID. Everything was a month-to-month budget. So we're in a good position. We need to bounce back in terms of some crowds. So I think we're at about 12,500 capacity at the stadium this year. And I think with that fixture, I mean, our benchmark internally is to get 10,000 plus for those first 3. So hopefully some good crowds, and we'll be better for it financially.
Thank you very much. I'm going to throw it out to the audience now. So I'm going to try and walk out here with my microphone. Hopefully it doesn't feedback. Does anybody have any questions? We've got a microphone. Evany's got it. So what I'd love for you guys to do, because for the past couple of forums, we've just asked the question, but this might be the first time you've spoken to these 3 lovely gentlemen. So introduce yourself, where you're from, and then you can ask the question.
Yeah, Mike from Myrtle Bank. Member since the beginning. A question about the salary cap. The salary cap this season is 2.5 million. Clubs are expected to spend 90% of that salary cap, so 2.25 million. Outside the salary cap, we're entitled to 2 marquee players, and there's a new salary this season for a designated player and another one next season. So 3-part question. Are we going to spend our salary cap? Who, if anybody, are our marquee players? And who, if anybody, is our designated player?
Very well researched. We can maybe get him a job in the football department. Sounds like you'd be a good negotiator as well with player wages. So Ross misspoke on this the other week with the cap. So the cap is, as you suggested, in broad terms, but clubs spend significantly more than that when you start to look at loyalty players, homegrown players, scholarship players, and as you said, marquee. So we don't currently have a marquee or a designated player. We actually haven't gone through the full process of the salary cap reporting at this stage, but they're somewhat of the marquee player in that traditional sense. And I get frustrated a little bit with that sort of sign a marquee. There's actually no mandate around what is a marquee player in terms of stature. It's almost become, it's a little bit of it's a marquee in a media sense, but in a salary cap sense, it's more of an accounting function. So That adjustment's made when we need to, but we're spending more this year than we have in gross terms relevant to the cap in probably the last 3 or 4 years that I can remember. If that answers the question.
So if you wanted to raise your hands, we'll be able to walk around with the microphone. Thank you very much for asking your question.
Hi, it's Brian. A question about the stadium. Are there any plans under the eastern side when it's completed to have a reserved area, or will it stay purely general admission?
No, I think we're looking at that at the moment. So we've been doing some modelling on that the last few weeks. I think we'll definitely shift to a reserve setup. We're the only stadium that I've ever been to where 75% of it, including the best seats in the stadium, are GA. We've probably been a little bit spoiled in that sense. So we're looking at that now in terms of then how do we actually structure membership. So our membership planning really hits full steam in January for next year. So once we have a full understanding of the stadium, what it looks like, we'll start to structure it up in terms of that east stand and potentially splitting it. But they'll still be cheaper than the west, is how we're sort of looking at it at the moment. But there's a bit of work to be done on that. We'll probably announce it early in the new year.
Thank you. Who's next? Now, what we might do is, as the next question's being asked, if someone wants to ask a question following that, put your hand up now because we'll get Ebony to bring the microphone round to you afterwards, okay? So we know where we're going.
My question's to Nathan. I'm Roger from Largs Bay. Nathan, is there any plans for the APL to expand the A-League next season to 14 teams and into 23 into 16 teams?
The short answer is I don't know. So that isn't something that has been discussed at a club level anyway. I think the intent though is, so there's been a few questions come up this year around why do we play 26 games with 12 teams. One, you need to play a minimum of 26 to qualify for the Asian Champions League. So that will always stay the minimum. And I think the logical solution for me would be to get to 14 and you play everyone twice, home and away, and have 26 games. So I don't know when or if that will happen, but I think that's a logical next step when the time's right.
Hey guys, most of you probably know me, but Robbie from Red Army Secretary. I thought I'd break it up a little bit with something a bit more humorous. Obviously, we've had some players leave the A-League due to other ambitions, most recently to join the priesthood. Who would be the one Adelaide United player to leave for the most random job ever?
Hey, Carl, good luck.
I don't know. I don't know if what jobs our players have left for, to be honest.
Well, Joey Champness left to be a rapper.
I would say Jason Spagnola. He sells more real estate in Adelaide than anyone else.
That's actually a very good answer. Do we have any more from the floor about the venue? Oh, we do have the back. Thank you.
Yeah, I got one. Is there any noise about going to like promotion relegation with another div? Any noise in the background that we want to hear about?
There's a whole heap of noise about it. I think, again, this is personal opinion because as an independent club, we're not charged with, creating a football pyramid through the states. But I think that a second division will come long before promotion and relegation does. I think you just have to look at the finances associated with a country where you have to travel for every away game, and the means for a second division or semi-professional club to achieve that I think is a long way off. That said, I think the second division has real merit, and I worked at Football Australia when we rolled out the National Premier League Final Series, which was the minor premier from each state played off at the end of the year. I'd like to see that evolve into maybe a summer league or something like that, where the elite of the elite across the states play each other. I think that would be really good for football. COVID's probably pushed it back a little bit, but it might be something that they look at in the next couple of years.
The A-League's on the verge of selling 30% stake for 130 million to I think it's an American investment firm. How's that going? What's that mean for the league? And and for us?
I feel like I've said I don't know to the last 4 questions, but I don't. So again, we don't have the full transparency on that. But I think what has become evident since the change, so the decoupling from FA, who used to obviously run the A-League and the W-League as it was, to APL, now running the A-League Men and A-League Women, is that it's become a fully fan-focused commercial enterprise. You know, Vito and I both having worked at Football Australia, it was difficult for Football Australia to be a parent to both national teams and member feds and also try to run a professional competition. I think what APL are doing, and there'll be another big announcement regarding some back-of-house infrastructure, well, not really back-of-house, be front-of-house infrastructure that our guys are working on with the league at the moment. That'll be game-changing for fans. I think you'll see some info on that either next week or the week after. They're investing heavily in making the product better, and with that becomes commercial interest. So they're framing the league up much more in the American sense, that it's separate from the member association. And with that, it'll become much better commercialised. The more money into the game, you know, unfortunately that's the way it is. The money talks, and the clubs and the league will be better with increased investment. So I'm not sure of the specifics of what that's looking like, but I think ultimately you'll start to see more of this with clubs and the league becoming much more sophisticated, particularly in the next 12 months.
Mary from Edwardstown. Easily a question for the ownership group, I suppose, but again, maybe another rumour thing. Has the ownership group maybe thought about going into an investment of a pub or venue or something in Adelaide, like the old Castle Tavern set up, for fans to go and put money into the club that way? Would that ever be on the table again that you've heard of?
I don't think that's something that's been looked at, not from a club perspective. I'm very hesitant. Not a big fan. No, I'm not even a fan. I really don't like the idea of pokey revenue funding sporting clubs. I think it's a problem in the eastern states where they become heavily reliant on it. That said, clubs aren't exclusively, licensed venues aren't exclusively pokies. But no, that hasn't been something that I've been privy to any discussions on.
Yeah, just a question on membership numbers and just general attendances for the club. Is the club doing anything, have they got a specific strategy in place that perhaps complements what the APL is trying to do as well? I know we've got a new TV deal which is going to increase the profile of the game, and we're hoping that translates to more support for the game and hopefully more membership longer term. But and I know the APL have also got a digital hub that they're planning on launching pretty soon before the season. But do we also have a strategy for ourselves that's specific to the state in trying to get more members to the club and ultimately long-term fans?
Yeah, I won't go into specific detail of sort of what we do day to day, but there's a few elements to it. The match day experience is something that's lacking. So there's no coincidence that our attendance numbers have dropped off since Adelaide Oval. We were able to fight against it for a couple of years when we had success, but our crowds are actually bigger in the 2 years prior to winning the A-League than they were in the championship year. And I think that's because, and it's somewhat anecdotal, but I think West Lakes, we were always better than Footy Park. You go to Adelaide Oval, you're in town, you're getting a beer pre and post, you're having dinner, you're staying there the night, whatever it might be. All of a sudden the Cooper Stadium experience isn't quite as good as what it used to be. So that's been an issue for us, which, as Phil alluded to, will hopefully resolve itself. The other element for us has been, and this is something I harp on a lot about, is just pure match awareness. So I feel as though, everyone in this room probably does, but just the general fans and most importantly registered players, coaches and officials in clubland don't know when we're playing. I think that's a big problem, and that's probably primarily based on having a product that's behind a paywall exclusively in terms of Fox. The subscriptions for Fox were going south at the same rate as or potentially greater rate as A-League crowds. I think now getting back on free-to-air, we've had a media strategy focused on free-to-air news, so you'll see us on Channel 7, 9, 10, not every night, but near on every night of the week. It's been a real big push for us, is we need to just get to the masses. We're very good at digital, so our digital media and social media, I think, is the best in the A-League, and pound for pound, probably the best in any professional league in Australia. But that's one market. We also need to just get to that broader audience that might not be on social media, you know, and just to let them know when we're playing. So I think that's been another issue. And another one that we've been focused on, and it's something that it might not be obvious, but it's sort of affordability. Our ticket prices are basically the same as what they were 5 or 6 years ago. So we're conscious of that. There's some tweaks here and there that we need to do. Obviously, the expenses year on year go up, but we're conscious of making our product affordable. It's a little bit different, I think, when we play 13 games via 11 for an AFL. You compare the memberships now, it looks more expensive, but actually our per game is cheaper. So there's a few elements there that if we get right, I think we'll start to hopefully see, particularly on the back of the stadium, some increased crowds coming back. If not this year, they'll definitely be bigger this year, but next year when we get the full stadium.
The Adelaide United's been very successful with the FFA Cup. With the Women's World Cup coming up in Australia, is there any talk, Nathan, of a women's version of the FFA Cup?
It was talked about pre-COVID. I haven't heard anything since. I think that's a natural progression, though, and I think it would be really good for local football. I think the exposure that clubs have got through the men's FFA Cup has been exceptional. We just have to see what Olympic did. You know, they would have made some pocket money down there that game a few weeks ago, but the exposure for the club was really good. National stage, or free-to-air TV or 10 play. I would hope that it's the same for the women's game next. I think it would be really good for the NPL. We've spoken a lot about that for us to become better. We're somewhat representative of the health of the clubs below us, and if the WNPL can continue to improve and provide better environments for players, we're going to be the benefactor of that because the majority of our squad is South Australian. So hopefully, again, it's probably one of those post-COVID things once finances allow, but hopefully we see an FA Cup for the women in the near future.
Mark Jones, the Red Army, when they are on song, do make a racket. And when they pack out the behind the northern goals, which is rare these days, sadly, they do create great atmosphere. Is there any chance of getting a sponsorship or restructuring the Red Army to get young kids involved? Because it just doesn't seem that way.
So, good question. Didn't realise I was going to be put on the spot, but hey, happy to. We are trying to make us a bit more family friendly. We've gone through a lot of restructuring in the last few years. We do want you a part of us. You are a part of us. We are a part of this family. Let's all get together. All right. The main thing for us, we are looking at new memberships. There'll be some more information coming about next couple of weeks. And maybe even if we can talk with the club, see if we can get a few of you in there. The main thing for us is we are a part of this. We are there to support our team along. All right. And I know there's obviously been some stuff that's happened in the past. We appreciate that. And there's obviously that omen. And I guess there's a bit of bad blood in the past. We're trying to push that aside. We do want to be there for you. We love, absolutely love when you respond to our chants, be a part of it. I mean, everyone here can probably nod at me right now. The moment you start hearing sha-la-la-la-la, all right, you know it's a special moment when that comes in. But what we also need you to understand, there have been times in the past where it's 45 degrees. No one wants to chant in that heat, all right? Especially us when it's like 3:30 in the afternoon. So there have been times where, yeah, we've been a little bit lackluster. And I can guarantee you, in that temperature, no one performs well, not even the players. All right, so be with us. All right, we are in a restructure. We want you to be a part of it. And if you want to know any more, come see us. We are more than approachable. All right, you've got the president here, Mary Cavey now. And honestly, that's one thing I do want to address. Mary is the first female president of any active support in this country, and most possibly the world. So, you know, that's something in itself that we are very proud of. And yeah, as I said, we want you to be a part of it. Thank you.
On that, I don't think we don't have the earliest we kick off all year is 7:15. Is that right? Maybe 7:45 through Christmas. But yeah, so there you go. But I'll speak to, because again, I was at FA during the days of the sort of active issues, primarily with Victory and Wanderers. But it's a completely different landscape now. We work really proactively with the Red Army. We want that bay full. It's much more family friendly. You know, there's the occasional swear word creeps into a chamber for the most part. It's a really good environment. So we try to support them as best we can, because it's in everyone's interest, I think, to have a full northern end. So it's definitely a much healthier. I wouldn't say it wasn't a healthy environment before, but I think it's becoming much more family friendly, which is good for everyone.
Just quickly, last time we had one of these in person, if you remember last year, we were talking about a plan of a new stadium. We're talking about making a better stadium than the Wanderers. Since that's happened, we've gotten the World Cup, we've got an upgrade for Hindmarsh, and the state government's come out and committed to a new stadium if they get elected that omits football. And with our upgrade, I'm just wondering, has our position changed? Are we looking at a new stadium? I know our stadium's life has been extended, but are we looking at a new stadium in the future, or just constantly upgrading Coopers?
No, we're not looking at a new stadium, and I think the arena model we were obviously part of at one stage, but financially, the cost to include football in a was prohibitive. That we acknowledged. But I've grown up here and spent a lot of time at Cooper Stadium. Like, as much as it does have shortcomings, as you said, this extends its life for me for another 10 years at least. And it doesn't just extend, it's not on life support, it actually will become a very, very good stadium. Like, to put in perspective, the 2 screens that are going in are 100 square metres each. Like, we're not putting in TVs from the good guys here. Like, it's going to be
Big shout out to the good guys if they want to sponsor us. By the way, we are grateful if you want to sponsor us going into the next season.
It will be a proper stadium. But for me, for the foreseeable future, like, I'm really close to that place, and we shouldn't take for granted, and we use this analogy all the time, find another stadium in the country that has the colour of its team's seats. It doesn't exist. Like, I think we need to be careful that we don't push that aside too easily. We're basically the only tenant. The only other tenant is local football, so it's exclusively ours. The in goals are too small to play league and union. Like, that's fantastic. That's one of the big reasons why we didn't want the capacity upgraded. To upgrade the capacity would have resulted in it being union and league compliant. They would have needed to move the stands back. Like, we can't lose that. So I'm really parochial around the stadium because it's the home of football. One day it may become untenable, but I think what's happening now gives us, I don't know what the actual lifespan, but another decade at Coopers.
Yeah, hey guys. Just got a question for Carl. I don't know if you want to talk about individual players, but what happened with Dom Costanzo? Because I think we all thought that he might have been one of the first father-sons to play for United. He's banging in goals in the NPL. He's one of the first NPL players that United have picked up in quite a while. Yeah, so what happened with Dom?
Yeah, Dom, when he came in last season, he was a fair way behind. He worked extremely hard to get close to the level. And he just couldn't quite get to that point. It was unfortunate. He's a good kid. And he needs to keep working hard and not give up. I'm sure if he keeps working hard, because he has some talent, but at times he just had not enough good habits to force his way into the team last year.
Is that one of your most challenging moments as a football coach, though? Because obviously, with Ange, you play with Ange, so you're not just doing what you're there to do as a job, but you've got to make sure you do it in a sensitive way as well because of the pre-existing relationship.
Yeah, most definitely. It's like you said, it goes to all young players. We're not going to play a young player just because they're a young player. They have to earn that spot and deserve that spot to play. And if they if they don't do everything that we believe they need to do to make the team, they don't make the team.
Mark from Satan. Do you know how Stephen Moore would cope with Josh roughly?
Yeah, Stefan's the captain, and he gets on very well with all the players, and he's the one that leads the change room and sets all the rules and makes the change room the way it is.
Hey guys, I'm Kat. I'm RA as well. Bit of a random one. With all the upgrades, does that mean the pricing of things are going to go up? So bar prices, are they going to go up? It's already expensive, so...
No, they're not. So I think they're fixed, Phil. Yeah, I don't know about that. No, but there you go. So the food and beverage prices will stay the same. There you go.
We've got time for just a couple more, guys.
Sorry. Hi, Anthony. Here, I've been a member for about 10 years or so. I'm interested in the relationship with our sister club in China or wherever it is. We don't hear very much about that, if it exists, and what it's about and what it's delivering to our club, and what's its future.
Pete, do you want to maybe give an update on what's happening in China? Yeah.
Yes, then finally from the back of the room. Yeah, we started out 5 years ago with founding a club in China, and the reason for me is I've been working in football for the last 20 years, and football is the true global game, as we all know, and connecting countries and finding new opportunities, that's for me a big reason to end up here in Australia as well. And obviously COVID has made things difficult. I haven't been in China for 2 years, since 2 years and 2 days. So it's very difficult to run the club there. The club are doing well, mid-table, stable. I would like to exchange knowledge, to let coaches learn from each other, to let players train with other teams to play international games. Well, the last 2 years that's all been impossible, of course. But what we have seen is, for instance, our kit supplier, and I think it's one of the best in the league with our designs, with the pricing. That's coming through China. We've got sponsorship from Haier and Hisense, which are two of the largest companies in Qingdao, where the club is. So these connections, they are there and they're developing. But obviously, if we could travel there regularly and exchange knowledge and exchange people, that would go faster. But yeah, I think it'll be another 6 to 12 months until traveling with China is back to normal, and that's not helped by the relationships. But also, Flinders University, of course, have a large group of Chinese students, so everything is connected together, and that's that plays an important part going forward. Unfortunately, not as much as we'd hoped, but that's something that we can't do anything about now.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, so I want to ask one last question, and I'm glad you mentioned UCAN with the playing shirts, because I think this is going to be the most controversial question of the night. There's three of you up on stage, Vito, Nathan, Carl. We have the red home playing shirt. We have the navy one, which is paying a little bit of love to the Vineyards, McLaren Vale. And we have the coral one, which is outstanding. And the great thing about UCAN is that, like previously in the past, we have been, I think what happens with a lot of manufacturers, they go, here's the template to put your design for your playing shirt, which sometimes you can see the same model like with other clubs. So like for 1 year, if we had Macron on, Perth Glory had Macron, it looks quite similar. But now we get full control over it. So the team in the office are absolutely outstanding. What's your favourite playing shirt this season?
Mine's always the red.
Red, thank you. Come on, Cozzy.
Coral.
Coral, yes. Vito?
Blue.
Well, you guys have been extremely honest tonight. We are so grateful. Before you go, I'm just checking my phone because we have the winner of the Lucky Door prize. So that is there. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for being here. The winner of the signed shirt is Mark Jones. So congratulations, you win that. Well done, Mark. To Phil King, Vito, Nathan, and Carl, thank you for your honesty and your transparency leading into a new season. We've got an FFA Cup campaign that we want to continue marching on for, and the season's here before we know it, which we're very excited. And for you guys, the members, the lifeline of this football club, thank you for being here and asking so many questions as well. It is just the beginning, and hopefully you can feel this genuine connection so you can ask questions at any time. But we're starting a brand new season, and it's great to do it here tonight at the Joiners. Thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. The cash bar's open for another 30 minutes, so make the most of it.